Hello everyone, and welcome to this video which is in our Great Engine Middlegames series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we're taking a look at a very interesting episode of play played in the game between Stoofvlees and Komodo Dragon TCEC Season 22 Division P. So this game was a bit of a shock because Stoofvlees beat Komodo. Of course, Stoofvlees is a tremendously strong engine, but yeah, I mean the top three are so far ahead that it's always pretty shocking when an engine outside the top three manages to hold on to an advantage from start to finish. But Stoofvlees certainly did that very well here. So how do stronger players lose to weaker players? Well, part of it is, of course, due to the weaker player playing well and might just be having a great day, or maybe you reach a position that suits the weaker player to an extent that the difference in strength is not apparent. But sometimes also the character of the position for the opening can play a huge role. And that's what really struck me from this game, funnily enough. I mean, human grandmaster wanting to regularly beat players 200 to 300 elo points weaker with black, needs a stash of riskier, murky openings. And, a really successful opening of that type sort of keeps that dreaded moment of mutual clarity, when both players clearly see that white is better, as far as possible in the distance. It's nothing to do with engine evaluation. Stockfish or Komodo would probably be screaming +2 or +3, from a very early stage. But if it looks or feels unclear to a human, for example, there's a weakened king's position that makes your opponent nervous, even if Stockfish is not bothered at all, then the chance for mistakes is very much present. But sometimes you play openings like that, and then you end up in a situation where all the agonizing decisions, they don't fall on your opponent, they fall back on you. And this position is very much a case in point. I mean, white's got a very pleasant French structure here with excellent dark square control. You've got the pawns on e5, b4 and a3. Brilliant. In actual fact, in this position, Stoofvlees played the move knight e2, which is, very, very sensible, aiming to bring a knight into this strong d4 outpost later. The thing is that knight e2 has incautiously given black the opportunity to sacrifice with rook takes f3, wrecking the king's position. And if it's a weaker human player, you also tend to suspect that he's missed the idea. Obviously not the case with Stoofvlees. So great. Your openings worked. Your opponent's got confused, and you can play rook takes f3, right? The point is that rook takes f3 was one of your looks, feels unclear kind of things. You were hoping actually that the latent threat of rook takes f3 would dissuade white from playing knight e2. When white plays knight e2, you understand that that rook takes f3. It does something, but not really enough. It's not the compensation you get from weakening the king side is not that great. But you're also very uneasily aware that if you don't play that sacrifice now, you might just end up, once white goes knight e d4, you might just end up in a very passive position with where basically the whole point of your opening just hasn't really worked at all, and you're just ending up in a worse position and passive as well. So it's a sort of situation which you can agonize enormously about what to do next, all the while with a mounting sense of irritation because you suspect that your opponent just missed the idea, but somehow played a great move by mistake. Of course, with Stoofvlees it's a different. Stoofvlees is just understanding that this is not dangerous, and so it can play it, which is why you don't play those risky, murky openings too often against strong opponents, because they're quite capable of seeing through the fog and understanding what is a real threat and what's just a bluff, really. And actually, I mean, when I saw with my engine games what was happening, you see that actually you just got a mixture of both. After rook takes f3, things were going badly wrong, and if you didn't do it, then you're just getting ground down. So just tough situation. So in this position, after knight e2, I tried rook f3 in some of my engine games, but this just went really badly. In actual fact, what you see very, very quickly that black doesn't have any sort of firepower to exploit this weakening. Indeed, actually, the fact that white's gone gf3 has opened up the g file for the rook. and just given white a huge amount of firepower. And for example, I mean, I'll just show you Berserk beating Stockfish without any sweat. Berserk took a fairly quiet, calm approach to it all. Stockfish went rather violently for the kill, but it doesn't really change anything at all. I mean, simply black doesn't have the means to create counterplay, and white just plays beautifully, smoothly, breaks in with b5. You're going to see this a lot. Queen b4, b6, rook c8, knight b7, and then a nice positional move from Berserk. And yeah, black didn't survive long here. It's just a very smooth, good position for white. So yeah, I mean, this immediate exchange sacrifice doesn't work. So Komodo played a6, and now yeah, a human player might just follow up automatically with knight d4, which isn't bad at all, but it wouldn't be the best line at all. What Stoofvlees does, of course, it understands that rook f3 is still not dangerous, so it's going to play some useful moves there. And actually, this move h3, it's a good general move, stops knight g4, for example, but it's also giving white the idea of playing knight h2 and then f4 and g4, which can be very, very powerful indeed. So not even going to put the knight on d4, it's just not even going to give black the comfort of some exchanges, just going to move the knight away and advance the kingside pawns. So yeah, I mean, rook f3, gf3, queen f8, f4, pretty similar to the last move. For example, king h8, king h2, make use of h3 there, just to bring the rook into g1. And again, Berserk beat Stockfish very easily from this position. So yeah, just carnage really. So queen e8 was played by Komodo, still keeping this rook f3 in reserve. Yeah, I mean, Stockfish was Berserk was playing knight f5 in this position, which is also quite common. I mean, very bravely abandoning that sacrifice on f3 and just bringing the knight into play. And well, I think I have to show you this game that Stockfish won, because it was quite gorgeous in actual fact. So queen d2, queen b6, bishop b1, rook f7, queen d3. So lining up on h7 and threatening g4. So black's forced to play g6, weakening some dark squares here. And now this move knight h2, making brilliant use of 16h3, and we're coming into g4 f6, and well, Berserk played bishop g5, and then Stockfish sacrificed the exchange. And of course, the amazing thing about this is that from a human perspective, you say, yeah, compensation for white, going to get the knight into f6, but for Stockfish, this is already completely winning. It's not with initiative, it's completely winning. And king g7, queen d2. I mean, I was kind of surprised that Stockfish exchanged off the rooks here. You're sort of thinking, do you have enough firepower by yourself? However, it's not really about attacking power. It's simply that it's just a massive positional advantage for white. And yeah, white can already start playing against passive pieces, so exchanging off the opponent's active pieces, leaving the opponent with passive pieces, and well, then gradually encroaching. And well, that's what happens very nicely in the game. So knight f6 played. There's going to be the possibility very soon of playing g4 to drive away the knight and gain even more space. a5, bishop d3, takes, king h8, and now b5. And this is really squeezing black over the whole board. We're taking c6 away from the black knight, and we're freeing the a3 f8 diagonal, both for the dark squared bishop and also for the queen as well. So knight g8 played, knight f4, obviously not worried about this knight being exchanged. It just activates this dark squared bishop even more. d4 played, and now white decides to regroup a little bit, using a square that's been conceded. So knight e4, rook g7, knight g5, hitting the pawn on e6. Still, ideas like g4, bishop c4 are coming in now. So h6, knight f3, and it's kind of amazing that that white can be so calm. But it just shows that this positional advantage is not despite being material down, you don't have a need to attack like a lunatic straight away. You can just pick up more and more positional advantages. So bishop d7 takes, knight takes d4. We're attacking the pawn on e6, and we've got, all sorts of invasion lines, a3, f8 for the queen and the bishop. And also, if ever this pawn disappears, then this bishop will be mighty along the a1, h8 diagonal. So Stockfish just plays around on the dark squares and the weakness on e6, basically. This is a very nice maneuver. So blocking the protection of the queen on e6, so e6 is almost gone. Rook c8, queen d3, knight to f6. A little bit of a tactic from black, but Stockfish has seen further, of course. And the refutation is really nice because it looks like after f8, rook f8, that black's done all right. Past b pawn, you're going to just be equal material, but not equal material. There's knight e6 check, knight f8 at the end. Really beautiful from Stockfish, and but showing that sort of control that you've got over the position. So queen e8 was played by Komodo, queen d2, and now Komodo bites, and it decides to sacrifice on f3. Rook takes f3, and funnily enough, it was the only engine to do so. Which again shows Komodo going for different moves than the rest of the engines quite often. Knight f5 was Leela's first choice, also Stockfish's first choice. I mean, g4, knight h4 takes, f4, bishop d8, queen e3 was Leela's main line. Just a 22.7% expected score for black, so pretty poor position. And White's got big kingside pawn roller. Eventually that one will get moving. It's going to be a very difficult position for black. Bishop d8 was Berserk's first choice, Leela's second choice. And again, we just get some sort of advance on the queen side like this. Stockfish beat Berserk quite easily here by swapping off the knights, swapping off the dark square bishops, and then playing against this bad light squared bishop. Was pretty smooth stuff, really. So, Komodo's choice, I think, from a human perspective, it's definitely the one you'd want to do. At some stage, you've been given this chance a number of moves in succession. At some stage, you've got to go for it. So gf3, queen h5, and now f4. And this is a really good decision from Stoofvlees. King g2 was played by Berserk and is also decent. But here Stockfish managed to generate some play with rook f8, f4, bishop d8, and we're aiming for maybe bishop e8 to g6, but also knight e7 to g6 to h4 here. Maybe also with a knight coming to f5. We've got the pieces are sort of connecting together in that way, and Stockfish managed to generate some play there. So f4 is a very practical decision, actually would be a superb human decision from Stoofvlees, giving up the pawn on h3 but virtually forcing the exchange of queens. And then after the exchange of queens, black's pieces are just going to be very passive, white's structure very solid, and we'll just, white will just be able to, in its own time, just convert its advantage. So queen h3 played, queen e3, this is the key point. The idea, by the way, is that if you played rook f8, you can actually play the king to h2 in this position. Knight g4, king g2. It's just a little check, and you're just getting rook g1 in, and you're just really, really quick. Instead of playing the king to g2, you're playing to h2 and getting the rook on the g file straight away. So black's counterplay is going to be much, much slower. So queen h3 was played by Komodo. Queen e3, queen h5, king g2. This is the key idea. Knight f5, queen h3. Knight h4 check was tried by Berserk just to avoid the exchange of queens, but it didn't really work. White just goes rook g1 to g4, and at some stage this knight has to retreat. So you might as well take the queens off immediately. King takes h3, and black's got a pawn for the exchange, which is not so bad, but black's pieces, bishops on d7, e7, not very active, and there is a big danger here that black won't be able to do much more than sit and wait, and just wait for white to do something, which will most likely be on the queen side. Either the immediate b5 break or prepared with a4 and b5. And actually, that seems to be what Stoofvlees is aiming for, because after rook f8, it played this move bishop c3, which is in principle a very good move. It's defending the pawn on b4, and it's also preparing bishop d2 just to defend the pawn on f4. So it's a good move, but it's actually quite a slow move, and it gives black the chance for some counterplay. But the funny thing is that Stoofvlees, well, had actually seen very, very deeply into this position, seen all the counterplay and said, yay, go for it. You know, it's I want to see that. So yeah, that's what we got. Quite amazing, but very well calculated from Stoofvlees. Again, you know, if this was a human game, you sort of think, you know, oh, my opponent didn't see it coming, and but it still turned out to be fine. But in Stoofvlees' case, this is somewhat different. So knight h4 was played by Komodo. Rook fd1, just holding everything together, and then this move knight g6, hitting the pawn on f4. King g4. To defend the pawn. Looks a little bit fraught for white, but okay, you know, I mean, everything's defended still, and what can black do? Well, there's this move bishop e8, which is threatening a very sneaky undermining attack with h5, and of course what you're trying to do, you're trying to push the king away from the defense of this pawn. And just remember that if you do stuff like bishop d2, there's this move knight e5 check, forking king and bishop. It's going to happen an awful lot. So rook h1 was played by Stoofvlees, and it had foreseen this line, h5 check. I have to say it did cost me some effort to understand what on earth is the point of that, because you know, rook h5 looks obvious, you know, because after knight f4 we go knight f4. And, well, you know, rook f4 check is possible, but this is not particularly great for black. I mean, you've just exchanged off some pieces and, well, just basically got white closer to the win. However, there is a cunning point, because after bishop takes h5, you can play knight takes h5. Looks like you're just a piece up, right? But then we go d4, and this is the unexpected point. That, you know, the bishop that was brought to c3 is now vulnerable, attacked, and if the bishop retreats, we've got this move knight e5 again, forking king on g4 and bishop on d3. So this actually works. So yeah, Stoofvlees had seen it. King g3, h4 check, king g4, and now we get a tactic based on the similar idea: knight f4, and d4. Of course, we're attacking the bishop on c3, threatening knight e5. It suddenly looks like white's in trouble. But Stoofvlees had foreseen this and played the move bishop d4, knight d4, rook c4, attacking the knight. And when the knight retreats now, we're defending the knight on f4. And now rook e1. And yeah, I mean, it sort of feels a little bit fraught and stretched for white. You know, I mean, we've got a rook on c4 defending this one, a rook defending this one. Yeah, a little bit worrying. However, the point is that by sort of running after this activity, black has really weakened its own position. I mean, it's blown open the line squares, really. There's the e6 pawn that's weakened, well, you know, g6, h5. You really know that black's not going to be able to survive just by standing still now. So black has to keep on going and try and find new ways of generating activity, but it's not that easy. You know, and it's one of those things, actually, you know, just sort of, you know, concrete play like this can often, well, make a shortcut to victory, because, you know, whilst you're accepting and navigating danger, your opponent's ruining its position more and more and more. So, and of course, you know, if this was a human game, you'd be thinking, oh, you know, I'm sure my opponent has missed most of this, but somehow surviving. How unlucky can you be? So Komodo keeps on going with g5, knight h3, king g7, and then knight g5 works unexpectedly, because after rook f2, you've got this very fine move rook c2, which forces the exchange of rooks, which black really does not want. Because yeah, I mean, without the rooks, I mean, there's no counterplay, right, and there's only weaknesses left. But if you try and go back to f8, then I've got knight e6 check, which is really nice. So after knight g5, you have to play king h6, and then we go f4. But yeah, just when it looks as if white's, you know, getting some sort of control, black starts with the next go. b5, rook c3, bishop h5 check. Of course, black's completely weakening its position now. The knight on c6, is lacking any sort of stability now. So it really is all in here. Rook f4, knight e6, and well, you're hitting this one. The rook's attacking the knight. I mean, it looks like you're just going to really end up losing something, but black's got so much activity here. Komodo manages to find this. We get bishop h4, rook ec1, knight e5 even. And then bishop e4, takes, bishop g4, knight f4. And well, we reach an interesting endgame that I'll probably look at in detail in an endgame video. Otherwise, this one's going to get really long, I think. I mean, white is clearly better, probably winning, but I think there was still quite a lot of good defending to do. And just in this position, Komodo played the strange move king g7 and ended up losing very convincingly, I think. But there were quite a few different chances, maybe bishop e1 or knight c4 here, you know, and well, it'd be very interesting to have a look at that in a future video. But for the purposes of this Great Engine Middlegames video, I think we've seen enough. I mean, really great play from Stoofvlees. You know, I mean, beautifully controlled the position, starting with knight e2, not worrying about rook takes f3. And then yeah, this move f4 was also very good, you know, just giving up a pawn, but in order to achieve, you know, a key goal, which was the exchange of queens. I mean, I thought Komodo's you know, bravery in going for the exchange sack, and then the you know, the activity that it generated was incredible, and of course also incredible that Stoofvlees just sees this and says, "Yay, it's all fine." You know, it's just yeah, that's why we love watching Stoofvlees play. And yeah, I mean, brilliant tactics all the way through. You know, this was quite incredible. And yeah, I mean, after, you know, even after king g7, it wasn't you know, 100% easy to win this game. But Stoofvlees did an excellent job of it. So yeah, well played, Stoofvlees. Hard luck, Komodo, but it doesn't seem to have materially affected Komodo's march to the super final. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Why not give it a like, or even subscribe to the channel if you did, or take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, which is definitely worth it. I think it's, yeah, very proud of it, so do take a look at it. And well, otherwise, thanks very much for watching this video, and hopefully see you at the next one.